I mean, you can say, you know, maybe old Final Fantasy is more interesting than new Final Fantasy, but there's not actually a huge gulf in terms of quality, meaning they have a lot of things in common. No, not the names of spells, but in other ways too. I think the overworld has a lot to do with what people miss in certain ways. Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing too. Is the one of the things that I love about Final Fantasy anyway is that it consistently reinvents itself, and every Final Fantasy, um, there are people saying, "Oh, this is the worst Final Fantasy ever." Of course, until maybe one or two Final Fantasies later, and everybody's like, "Oh, remember how great that one was." Like, I remember Final Fantasy XII in particular came out, and a lot of people just hated it. I really liked it. No, I wouldn't say that Final Fantasy XII was really anything like World of Warcraft in terms of the battle system. In fact, it's funny now because people look at something like Xenoblade Chronicles and say, which I think is the best JRPG in the last 5 years, and people say things like, well, that just took Final Fantasy XII and took it to the next level, and I completely agree with that. Final Fantasy XII was quite excellent. And one of the things I liked about it, I mean, you could argue that the story maybe isn't as great as others, in part because it didn't have the greatest leading man ever, right? Like, yeah, like it had Vaughn. Right. But I think what's interesting is, like, you usually associate Final Fantasy with Save the World. And in 12 you had a Final Fantasy that was much more local and political. Right. So that's one of the things I liked about it. And of course people complain about 13 being ultra linear. No, that's not what I meant to do. I just wasted an entire turn. I didn't mean to do that. That's alright. I just like the fact that I can hit every blitz. That is very exciting to me. Yeah, Robert's making the point that he thinks 12 would have been a lot more compelling if Vaughn hadn't even been the main character. You make a good point, and I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter. But it's funny though, because I'll be the first to say I think Final Fantasy 13 is actually a little underpraised. I think that game was really interesting in its own right, and I don't know. I'm of mixed feelings about all this stuff because I think that there's always that struggle of what we want games to be versus is it good in and of itself. Like, it's always that question number one is, does it do what it tried to do well, and is what it tried to do worthy in the first place? Right. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think that's true too. Like Final Fantasy 13, if it weren't called Final Fantasy, maybe people would have felt differently about it. But that's one of the things I like about it, and I sort of imagine if Irrational plays their cards right, sort of like with BioShock, I really like the idea if BioShock does something similar where they continue to tell stories with similar themes, but in different universes and in different, because that's what they're doing with Infinite. I'd love to see them continue to do that kind of thing with the BioShock franchise, because that gives you limitless you can do almost anything you want, but because you've established your brand as being about theme rather than about very specific things. I don't know, she's almost done. Well, I saw the trailer for Lightning Returns, and I'm kind of over it. Like, I liked 13-2 a lot, but I'm kind of over this story, if that makes any sense. Like, it doesn't need to be milked anymore. And well, and somebody, I think it was Phil Kohler, who's at Polygon now, used to be at Game Informer, had tweeted the other day that, I think it was Phil, either that or he retweeted it, saying that what the battle system in Lightning Returns looks like reminded him of what they might have been trying to go for with Final Fantasy Versus 13. And if that's the case, I'll be very sad, because Versus 13 has been the Square game that I've been looking forward to in all this time, since the beginning, when 13 and Versus 13 were both announced at the same time. It was Versus that I was interested in. What they really need to do is get off their asses and make Kingdom Hearts 3. Well, what I want is I'm gonna save. Oh, somebody's asking what Versus. Versus is a separate, what appeared to be, yeah, it's part of the Nova Crystallis like games that they were making, meaning 13, Versus 13, and what's Dissidia. But I'm thinking there was another game too. But it looked like it was, yeah, Agito. Oops, I just walked out of the city without meaning to. And it looked like that game, number one, it looked like that game was taking place in a sort of a real world setting, because it showed a city that looked like maybe a post-apocalyptic Tokyo. And it looked like it had an action RPG look to the battle system rather than typical Final Fantasy. Like, it looked like it had a real-time, like, action RPG system. And so that game had always fascinated me, if indeed. Okay. So, Robert's still having an ongoing discussion about who the real main character of Final Fantasy XII is. And now he's like, I think it's Bosch, come to think of it. And you could say that that is a strength or a weakness of 12, depending on what you will look for in an RPG, right? Like, the fact that it's got such a strong cast means you can't pinpoint a main character. Could be good if you're talking about an ensemble game. But I really do think that you have to have a very strong game to get away with, or a very strong story to get away with not having a true hero. Somebody's saying what now? They miss old Final Fantasy, where characters have their own specific skill sets. But see, I think that's actually a mischaracterization of old Final Fantasy, because we're playing Final Fantasy VI right now, a game in which anybody can pretty much everybody has their particular special ability, like the Blitz and. But in 5 was famous for being able to do almost everything with everyone. 6, you can do almost all of the same thing. It's the one special ability that differs. Otherwise, anybody can learn any magic. Somebody asking about 16... like good Western RPGs in the 16-bit era. Secret of Mana is not Western. Secret of Evermore is. See, when I think of Western RPGs, what I think of is, because in those days, RPGs weren't separated into those particular ways. They were separated as computer and console RPGs. So, in the day of an SNES or an NES, nobody talked about... It wasn't Western RPGs and JRPGs. Yeah. But... So, to come up with, like, a Western-style RPG on an NES or SNES is tough. Because most of that stuff was, like I said, that was more separated by platform at that stage. So if you wanted something that was Western style, you played on a PC and you played Baldur's Gate. Sorry, I got distracted. Or you played Icewind Dale, or you played Planescape Torment and whatnot. And even before that, like the Gold Box. Did any of the Gold Box games go to... Yeah, so you might be interested in like the Gold Box D&D games, Pool of Radiance, Heroes of the Lance. Alright, I'm gonna stop being distracted and do what it was that I was meaning to do. I know, we're working together here. We're a team. Yeah, Ultima is Western, but I don't know. Well, Ultima was on PC here, but I don't know, did... Oh, I thought they meant Ultima, like the series, the Ultima games. No, that's well, it's Lord British, so I guess it's Richard Garriott. I don't know if he's US or UK, but it's still Western. There we go. Yeah, well, that's the thing, like, console RPGs were considered to be different from what was showing up on PCs at the time. It's only after the two started mixing a lot more, where computer-style RPGs started showing up on consoles more, did that idea of separating it by JRPG and, like, Western RPG even exist. Yeah, and I just got diamond vests. Diamond vests for everybody! Oh, kid. After the end of the world, I awoke all alone in Doma Castle. When I would try to sleep there, demons would come for me. Oh, I don't want to remember that. Okay, bye. That's alright, you're being kind of emo for me anyway. Yeah, King's